everybody. Bear with me, I've been having a couple of allergy days, so I might be a little bit hoarse in my throat. And if I have a big sneeze coming on, I'll try to grab the mic before I blow your ears out. My name is David Thompson. I'm not an HR person. I'm a comms person. So I'm here to be the light entertainment in the afternoon. I won't be filling your ears with a lot of HR jingo jargon, but talking about how we at Electrolux use our data, together with HR data, to optimize our communications endeavors and our employee communications. A bit about the company. Only one slide about the company. If you don't know Electrolux, we're one of the largest white goods manufacturers in the world. Swedish company celebrating 100 years this year. We're 55,000 in the workforce, placed out in sites and manufacturing facilities in 61 countries globally. 23,000 of those, however, are salaried online employees. So with what I'm talking about today, we're referring to that group of people, about 23,000 globally. To give you a notion of our communications endeavors, in the past 12 months, we've published about, 1,900 employee news on our intranet. Had about 750,000 views amongst 24,000 individuals. And the smart ones in the room are probably saying, wait, you're 23,000 and there are 24,000 there, so there is some turnover. About 83% of those pages have had some sort of engagement action, so a like, a comment, or a share. And if you add all those up across those pages, that's about 33,000 engagement actions that we like to call them. So a pretty active readership base globally across our intranet. Before I dive into the nitty-gritty, I want to throw this slide out for everybody. I'm going to answer it later. But what is the most visited information page on our intranet? Is it the IT service desk page? Templates and presentations? Is it our behaviors and core competencies? It's an HR page about performance appraisals. Is it the Stockholm lunch menu in our headquarters in Stockholm? Or is it staff sales, product discounts? Think about it. We'll get back to that at the end. So a bit of the story about the benefits that we've found using a data-driven approach to our communications. And there are lots of obvious things, but things that are maybe not so obvious. I mean, insights clearly with communications. What's the top read news this week? What is the most commented, liked, and shared? These type of things. But there are other sorts of insights that we look at. For example, I know that the United States is our largest consumer of reading our employee news. And I wouldn't have thought so 2 years ago, but they read the most news. Italy looks at most information pages of anybody. Our business area in Europe is the most engaged. And within that business area, Poland, of all countries, has the most engagement. I mean, so we look at these kinds of numbers and we can dig into these insights and then we can do things with them later. Optimization. Optimization for you guys may mean one thing, but for us it's looking in the morning at 11 o'clock and seeing how that piece is doing. Is it under what we expect? We change a headline. We change a top image. We maybe, if we don't see what we want out of that in terms of viewership by the end of the day, we'll put it in a newsletter at the end of the week or in the morning. But we're constantly looking at the numbers to optimize. Engagement is a no-brainer. How much engagement are we seeing? Where are the hot spots within the organization? Are the cultural messages getting traction? Trends. Several years ago, sustainability was a very small portion of the content that we produced. The topic was very little, but it got a lot of impact. So we did more and more and more on sustainability. Now it's plateaued, and we're seeing diminishing returns on the stories that we do internally regarding sustainability. So we're seeing that trend, and we're looking at how to change that. You can use this data for decision making. When we launched our new intranet in January 2018, on the journey there, HR wanted us to have on the start page an RSS feed from our open jobs market, our internal jobs listings. I said no. And there was a lot of back and forth. It's like, well, there's no CRM here. There's no relevance. And we went back and we looked over 3 years on our old intranet. And I could see that over 3 years, less than 1% of the people trafficking our start page clicked on any one of those job links. 20% clicked on the link that said see all jobs. So they were using it for navigation to go to the jobs market, but nobody cared a hoot about any of the jobs that were listed. So I told him, you get some CRM and you get this stuff relevant to me as the user compared to my profile in whatever talent management systems we have, then we'll talk. So it became a thing to base your decisions on. And finally, trust me, this is the longest slide. Issues. In February, one day I woke up and I realized that our comment numbers were way down. It's like, what's going on? Is our content that bad? Do people not care anymore? And I went in and I started looking, and I could drill down to the 15-minute interval. On Wednesday the 14th or whatever it was, comments died. No more comments after that. So I took to our IT partners and we looked at it, and sure enough, Microsoft had pushed an update to Office 365 to the tenant earlier in that day, which broke something. Or maybe, I'm not saying Microsoft broke it, but something broke. And we had to get it fixed, and then all those numbers came back and everybody got a nice bump and was happy. But that's just an example of how looking and using a data-driven approach on a day-to-day basis can highlight broken things or issues in the system. When I started at Electrolux, it looks like me, doesn't it? When I first came to Electrolux in 2012, we had no KPIs. We had no targets on comms or on communications or on the content itself. There were statistics generally around the intranet, but nobody had a target. So, we had freelance editors that were contracted by word and word count and number of pieces per month, and when stuff gets put out, it's on the internet, thank you very much. We also worked, and still do, in a matrix organization. So all of the comms resources, the comms heads and their editorial resources sit out in the business. And as a central function, we're kind of across that, but we have no direct influence in the matter. It's about ambassadorship and talking about this and that, but they're paid out by the business. So I went to my bosses and I said, look, we got to establish some targets. We have to work with the data. We have to set some KPIs that we control so that we can bring people to the table to have that conversation. And it wasn't an easy task initially. This is actually some of the spreadsheets that we were using. We were in 3 different systems. So we had to pull extracts from Episerver to see what was published, when, by which channel. We had Site Catalyst for what was read and readership. We had IBM Connections doing our social. And we had some SharePoint stuff in there as well. And all this stuff needed to be put together in complex data in spreadsheets and pasted into PowerPoints, and it was just a mess. So somewhere along 2017 came this wonderful invention, digital transformation. I guess everybody in this room is part of one, been part of one, still part of one. It was a real buzzword back then, so long ago, 2 years. But this was a godsend for us in communications because IT had decided we're going to move everything into the cloud. We're going to go Office 365 full in. And that was great for us because we said, all right, we're going to get off all of these platforms over here and put everything in one bucket where we can control all the data and we can have everything in one place. And that was a good thing for us. And in January 2018, we launched our new intranet. And we have a very targeted publishing system. And Microsoft is coming with targeted publishing and modern SharePoint in the roadmap. But we're talking January 2018, we launched this. And it was important to have this so we could put the content out to the right people in the right parts of the business and they could see what would be published. And we could target it and schedule it. But to achieve this, we had to do a lot of work with HR, and we had to do a lot of planning for the architecture and everything on our platforms. So that's what we launched in January 2018. But we had to get the building blocks right for this, and this is not an easy endeavor. It's not as crystal clear as you might think. I might be preaching to the choir, but one of the things we really needed to do was get our people data aligned, and these are the building blocks. I'll go through them one by one. The first thing was aligning our people data. Now, Electrolux grew a lot through the 80s and 90s through acquisition. And that means lots of different HR systems all around the world that aren't compatible. And it wasn't until last year, actually, that we have a central person data, master data, and talent management system. So when we launched this, we had to have an onboarding wizard that would allow you to enter your details so that we could map that back. But now, by the end of the summer, there's been a long project, and by the end of the summer, our talent management system will be pushing that to identity management, which will be going to Active Directory and Azure AD, and also into our intranet. So everything will be synced, and let's say 98% accurate. At least it will always be as accurate as the same source. And we'll always know where people belong to what part of the organization, and then we'll have the right data to slice and dice the tables that we have. The second was managed taxonomy. Never underestimate it, even in communications. We sat down with HR, and we had to build a managed taxonomy, so it's a managed set of terms in SharePoint, based on our organizational structure, our job architecture, and sites and locations. And it sounds very easy on the surface. But for example, location data in our systems could have been Stockholm, floor 4, or remote Wisconsin. I'm like, well, that doesn't help us as communicators. We don't have an editor publishing content for remote Wisconsin or Stockholm, floor 4. So we had to harmonize a lot of these things. And we spent a good bit of time with them doing that, but finally we got it nailed down. The next thing was then building these communications channels in our intranet based on the taxonomy so that we could then target and map the content to the individual. This is our start page. This is the news section at the top of the page. And as a user, I can go in here to manage my interests, and this will illustrate how everything gets set up. If you look around at the screens, it's kind of small. But at the bottom here, these dark tags, these are based on your organizational belonging, and they can't be modified. So they're always there. These other tags, users can go and browse through the menus at the top to add areas of interest. I want to follow another business area in the company, or I want to follow design. I can add that there. This part here is what will be synced by the end of the summer. So by the end of the summer, that data will always be mapped into our intranet and our publishing system, so we'll have the right data on everybody all the time. And when it publishes up, it serves up the content. You can see the yellow tags or the goldish tags up there, BA, Europe, IT. This is all group, which is global, professional. And that's serving up the content. There's other types of contents on the page. Crossings are our people announcements. So this is people moving around the organization, promotions, new hires, parental leave, these types of things. And we have our leadership blogs. These are not Delve blogs. This is a separate page type. So we have a list of individuals that we can add that can be blogging there. So that's our start page. The last point, or the second last, is strategic themes. This is where it gets interesting. We wanted to be able to support our strategy and our business model. So from a content perspective and a communications perspective, we also created a managed set of strategic themes. This is another term set in SharePoint. And they're tied into the business model. I'm not going to bother showing that, but it's a fairly complex strategy house and business model with circles and arrows. One that we added was informational, because this is a required field. So any piece of news that's created on our intranet or any leadership blog has to have a strategic theme associated to it. And so we can track how we're supporting the different areas of the strategy and the communication. But if you're, say, the editor for the Stockholm channel, and the parking garage is closed on the weekend for cleaning, or the yoga class on Wednesdays is now moved to Thursdays, that's not really strategic. So we needed to add informational for that type of content. This also allows us to filter that out of the numbers, which is convenient. Lastly, integrated social. We use Yammer and the Yammer APIs across all our content, and everything is aggregated together. To make this work, we needed to keep it simple. And I even heard it in the previous speaker talking about keeping it simple. The data we have is so easy, it could make a super roundabout and confuse people. And the thing is, we're not an organization with a bespoke BI team or data scientists. I mean, we're communicators and happy amateurs. So we needed to make the dashboards and make everything that worked using clear visualizations, make it easy for these individuals provide training to them, not in Power BI, which is the tool we're using, but in how to use these dashboards. So just so they can get their work done. And in doing so, we spend less time making custom analysis for people. They can do the digging themselves for the most part, which gives us more time to have conversations and do the analysis and look at the content. We measure readership, we measure reach, and I'll show you what I mean by reach shortly. We're big on engagement, comments, likes, and shares. I've shown you the strategic theme, so we support the strategy. We have targets on all of the main organizational areas and functions. So they have to reach 25% increase this year on average monthly readership and a 25% increase on engagement. And the stats are fully integrated into all our reporting. So we provide to the general management team quarterly, including external numbers, to the communications heads to see how their KPIs are on a monthly basis. We have editorial calls every month, and this is a standing part of that agenda. And our HR executive committee gets a report monthly. So it's part of the game, and everybody's on board, which is good. How's it working? Is it working? I'll share a few of our dashboards. And I didn't know we were going to be in a room with people so far in the back, but hopefully you can see on one of the side screens. This is just a real quick thing with the 3 bars we have here. The top one is views per month. And in May, we just topped 100,000 for the first time, which was fantastic. We're going to have a cake tomorrow. Our second line here is average views per person, which has nearly doubled, if not doubled, since the beginning of the year, 9.5 views per person. So for every individual that goes in on our start page, 9.5 read a news per month, or they read 9.5 newses per month. The bottom line, however, is the interesting one. This is actual count of users. This is how many people have been in on the start page, and this has dropped. So, but even so, the reason that even though that has dropped, our numbers are way up. But the reason it's dropped is we're doing a PC refresh. And everybody in the company is getting a new laptop with a Windows 10 on it and Edge. And IT put IE11 on there, which has our start page set as the home page. Edge does not. And of course, everybody's going in to use Edge. So this is something we need to fix. And that's why we're seeing this drop in people. This is a dashboard for one of our business areas. This is the KPIs this is the report they get every month. 12 of our 14 business areas and functions are above target already. This is North America. And you can see the blue line there is above the red line, so they're in good shape. I wanted to point out also over here to the right, this is our audience reach number. And they've got some really good reach numbers, 54%, 30s, high 30s in the middle there. They get a lot of good reach. And what reach is in our world breaks down like this. If on the left side you see the purple there, or the light purple, say that's a piece of news you've put out and it gets 2,000 unique readers. These are individuals. And 1,000 of those individuals are from your part of the organization. Well, that's a readership share of 50%. But your organization might be 4,000 people large. That means your audience reach and the people you need to reach is only 25%. And this is a number we've been playing with for a few years. We're going to make it a target for all of these channels next year and set individual targets for all of them to increase that. It's nothing we wanted to do before we had this automated synchronization of the people data so that we knew people always belonged to the right place and we could be sure of this number. But we'll be putting that in place next year. This is how we work with our social, our engagement, so you can see the trends there. What's nice with referring to easy, slicing and dicing, that top menu up there, we can slice and dice, and then using the BI tools, everything just lines up for that channel. You can see that the group channel got motivated starting in December and has been doing a lot of good content. KPI dashboards for engagement for everybody look like this. Not all of them are on a good path for the end of the year. And when we see things like this, we start looking around at what the problem is. And we've been having single sign-on problems with Yammer, where often it comes and goes, but you'll have a page load, a news item, and you'll have to log in. to Yammer on that page to be able to like or comment or share. So we're trying to get that fixed, but it's really killing us on the engagement side, or at least killing us in the results. When it works, people are very engaged. And this is strategic themes. And I mentioned how we put these strategic themes to the content. And this is what we look at with regards to that. The brownish, it's actually sort of a purplish, but it's coming out brown, is the percentage and the disposition of these themes in what we've published. So percentually, almost 19% on talent and teamship is like people and collaboration. The blue is readership and the green is engagement. So we can look at them all together. And these are fairly balanced, which is kind of where you want to be. But for example, if I take a look at our business area Europe, one example would be sustainability, to the second one down, where they've published like 8.5% of their content has been about sustainability, and they're getting nothing back for it. And when we see things like this, we go in and we drill in and we start looking at it. Was it a terrible headline? Was it just a bad story? Is it something that was just, we've heard it before? What's going on? Why isn't this working? We also look the other way. When we see something that is getting a little output but getting a lot of response, ooh, something's working. What's the secret ingredient in that? And we share these best practices around the communications team. This is crossings. And I said crossings are our people announcements, right? And you don't need to, I'm not going to point out anything in specific on this. The interesting thing I want to point out with this is that in crossings, we have a lot of data. We have what type of crossing it is. Is it a new hire? Is it a new role? Is it an advancement? What's going on? We have effective date. We have location. We have all the organizational information on this individual. This started out as basically, candy at the checkout, right? This is stuff that people love to browse through, and it's like, oh, somebody's moving up and somebody's doing this. Oh, there's going to be a new organization over there. So it's kind of internal business intelligence for finding a new role in the company. And it's gossipy. But from an HR perspective, and we work closely with HR on this, we're going to start putting in the tier levels in the back end. And then we can take the data from this and create reports that they can have for talent management. So they can look at the different levels in the organizations and they can see this type of turnover and what's happening and what's playing out in these different areas and slice and dice the content or the data based on our publishing. So we can get a really good synergy there without having to add a bespoke system for doing just that. So it would be a nice thing to do with that. And we can then embed the report in a team site for HR and the talent management team. This will be an interesting thing. So just to wrap up on that, what have we learned on our journey? Well, big data can be used for a lot more than just counting views of content on your intranet and reaching your employees. Trying things out the old school way in Excel and working on it beforehand can actually give you the requirements you need to build your new intranet or to set the requirements. Align your taxonomy with your organizational structure and your job architecture. Kind of obvious, speaking to the choir here, but not always obvious in other organizations. Get your people data from one source and update it frequently. Create unique taxonomies to support strategic themes. We're actually going to start adding campaign themes for shorter term type of things, like a better living program or food foundation that we have, these types of things. And then we can map those. This is the advantage, that we can map those against our external efforts as well on LinkedIn, on Twitter. We can also take, because we're mapped to match the, if I back up to being matched with the taxonomy to the organizational structure, we can also then take results from our publishing and compare to, say, employee surveys, global surveys and stuff, because we can still slice the data based on the same taxonomies. So we can do these comparisons. And keep it simple to encourage adoption. Those are the things that we have learned on our journey. And finally, any takers? Any guesses? The most visited information page on Electrolux is global intranet. Anybody for A, the IT service desk? Nobody. B, Templates and presentations. Lots of PowerPoints being made. Nobody. Okay. No takers. C, our behaviors and our competencies. Performance appraisals. Nobody. D, oh, you people are smart. You people are smart. Actually, I took this number on Friday, so I'm guessing it's over 18,000 today. Visits of the Stockholm lunch menu. That's 668 people only that go in there. So that says to me that there are pretty much 65% of the company is on the lunch of the Stockholm office is on the lunch menu Monday morning. Every week. The good news, however, the good news for all the HR concerned in the room is that when you look at the uniques, if you look at the actual number of individuals on a page, performance appraisal, core competencies, talent, and one other HR page are by far, with about 6,000 each, the highest accessed pages on our internet. But when it comes to traffic, people think with their tummy. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and ask if there's any questions in the room. Oh.